For today, we have a very straightforward agenda. After I'm done with this, we're going to hear from Philipp Morris from Tencent Cloud on his presentation is called China, a Different Game, because it's looking at the game industry. Then we're going to hear from Jingshu Chen, who's joining us from China on cinematic VR content distribution. And then from Danielle Giroux from Astrea Immersive, who is joining us from France on Gloomy Eyes in China, a case study on this piece of content that was distributed in China. And then we're going to hear from you and your questions. I've already received some of them, so thank you for sending them through. We'll address those today, but also please take notes during the presentation and the presentations and write down any questions you have for afterwards, asking advice and things like that. Just before I stop sharing, a few housekeeping elements. So this event is being recorded and may be published also on the Audience of the Future live site. So just bear that in mind. When you speak in the discussion, please introduce yourself. And if you forget, because that sometimes happens, we will remind you. Then we encourage you to raise the Zoom, to use the raise Zoom hand function on Zoom at the bottom right corner under reactions, and Alice and I will call on you. We would love to have you turn on your camera and mic to speak, but we understand if that's not possible for everyone. So don't let that stop you from contributing, and use the chat if you prefer. And if you want to see captions, you can click on live transcript at the bottom of where the settings are. And then the button view, so you'll be able to see captions. And if you have any issues during the event, just send Alice or I a private message. So that's it for me. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to hand over to our first speaker, joining us from the US today, actually, Philipp Morris.
Thanks, Maddie. Hi, everyone. Let me just get my screen set up. So you're probably going to be bored of hearing this, but can everybody see my screen and can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. So as Maddie said, this is my short presentation today called A Different Game. I am in the gaming industry. I'm currently in San Francisco because this week is San Francisco hosting the annual GDC conference, which is the biggest conference for my industry. Yeah, this is just a little introduction to myself. I've been in games over 10 years. I actually started out my career working, I studied Japanese at university, and that kind of opened the door for me to go and work for Nintendo. And I worked for one or two other Japanese companies in the game space before landing at Tencent. So the reason I show my background is because actually one of the things that Tencent are looking for when they're growing their overseas teams is this cultural appreciation. So I spent some time in Japan living there and China. And I think that's actually really helped me in what I do day to day and how we communicate with our international teams, as I hope you'll glean from my slides that this cultural appreciation is really core to the kind of stuff that we do at the moment. So that's a little bit about me. I'm actually based in the UK, working for Tencent Cloud Europe. So this is the game plan, excuse the pun. I thought I'd give a couple of introductions to give some context to where I'm coming from. Firstly, around what I do day to day, but also around the games industry. I'm not sure everybody's proficiency on games on this call, but naturally there will be crossovers in the tech space. I'm particularly focused on video games. I'm particularly focused on European developer community and also assisting that community in getting into China market, but also other Asian markets. I then just wanted to give like my take on what China's kind of going through now, and then this kind of obstacle course that a lot of people have to navigate when dealing with certain Asian markets, And then I'll try and hone in a little bit on a case study we recently had, and then try and give you some conclusions to take away. So I'll try and fit that all into 10 minutes if I can. So just to give some context, Tencent, you may all have heard or read on the news, this kind of big monster of a company. It's a $1 billion company based out of China, very much still Chinese, but at a crossroads at the moment where we're trying to internationalize. Actually, Tencent was around the year before Facebook as a messaging service. We developed messaging software, and we're headquartered in Shenzhen in China. We develop all kinds of technology. Some of you may have used our Wechat app, which is central to people's daily life in China. You can use it to pay for taxis and food, and it's more of an operating system actually than an app. Much deeper than the WhatsApp and other technologies that we use. And we're a huge company. We're the most valuable publicly traded company in China. And, we have huge presence there. In fact, I think around 75% of games in China are on Tencent platforms. They're supported by Tencent technology. And but nevertheless, we do support the startup community in games as much as we support established companies. That's very important, and I've been emphasizing that this week at the Game Developer Conference. That even though we are a huge company, we do support everybody on the spectrum, from small studios to large. So these are some of the myths that I try to dispel on a daily basis. Tencent Cloud, again, not quite sure what everyone knows about cloud technology, but it basically is the cloud-based infrastructure that supports modern-day online gaming. If you play multiplayer games in China, chances are you've used our cloud technology. As I'll come on to say, we own and have investment in some very, very well-known brands in the games industry, or you'll be playing games at home, your kids will be playing games at home that are relying on our innovative technology without you even knowing it. So we've got over 1 million servers. We're the 6th largest IaaS platform in the world. We've got a huge network in China and growing globally. We have new data centers in Indonesia, India, emerging markets as well. China's like the mothership and currently going through a period of internationalization. This is some of the investment portfolio. This is public knowledge. It's not sensitive information at all. These are investments that Tencent has made into the games industry. So this is from Tencent Games rather than Tencent Cloud. It's a different division of Tencent, but we feed off each other. Some notable names on the list are Sumo, Splash Damage, for anyone that know those guys in the UK. And of course, Supercell, which until Microsoft stole the headlines recently was the largest deal in gaming. Some significant sums of money involved here. And as some of you may know from being exposed to the games industry, just jump to this slide. It's absolutely huge. The games industry is worth more than the music and film industry combined. And it's projected to hit $300 billion by 2027, which is just a staggering sum of money. And one of the reasons for this, well, there are several. It was growing even before COVID. The industry as a whole was growing before COVID in China and outside of China. But just down here in this bottom right-hand corner, I hope you can see that the amount of in-game spending, the revenue was 74% from in-game spending. So that's people playing on mobile, on other devices, spending money in-game. That's a huge amount of money. As well as videos watched on YouTube and new IPs coming out of the games industry, the numbers are quite staggering. And I will reiterate that the games industry was growing in a really, really healthy manner despite COVID. COVID has just accentuated this. People playing games at home, looking for different forms of entertainment. It will always be inextricably linked to the pandemic and the stay-at-home order. But the games industry was in great shape anyway. And is just worth a staggering amount of money. I just want to move quickly on to give to focus a little bit more on China. This is how I kind of see China from a games perspective at the moment. Actually, 2021 for games in China was bigger than 2020. And this is despite some of the regulations that were put in place. Regulations like anti-addiction requirements, regulations like the amount of time you can spend on a particular game, with tracked logins across sort of cross-platform tracked logins to make sure that kids aren't spending too much time playing games. And there's something of a sort of Chinese revolution going on. There is inevitably, as I'm sure the other speakers will allude to, geopolitically driven requirements. And there's a kind of, as I see it at the moment anyway, there's like a reordering of economic policy. This again is related to everything else going on in the news. But gaming is still booming. Regardless of the restrictions, you still have the same number of people in the country. The same number of people still want to play games. And people are innovative. Most Steam games, that means games distributed for PC via the Steam platform. Most of them are played via VPNs, the virtual protocol networks, which allow you to circumnavigate the geographical requirements of a game. Most gamers are using those. It's pretty easy to get around, and I think people in Russia are currently doing the same thing. It's important to note that more and more developers that want to enter the Chinese market are making so-called Chinese versions. They're either content has been stripped out, the localization is sensitive, any political content has been taken out, for example. But even though you can make a China version, that obviously affects your budget. You need to develop essentially for a different platform, and it's really challenging. But I would say, you need to kind of accept this. And one of the things that I would like to emphasize is that this acceptance on the restrictions actually gives you a kind of opportunity to innovate, and the opportunity to innovate by yourself or by way of partnering and adapting to the conditions. Because in the 2 years I've been at Tencent Cloud, there are numerous restrictions that come and go or get or sort of evolve, let's say. And it's really important to continually adapt to those restrictions. I don't think the Chinese games market is going anywhere. It just requires developers to adapt to its conditions. So this regulatory obstacle course, I wanted to just jump straight through to the end and refer to a few slides I have to this obstacle course that people have to navigate. Now, there's three main ways for China market entry in the game space. You can establish a legal entity, you can partner with a local company like ourselves, or you can go down and deploy servers in Hong Kong. There are workaround solutions, and I'll come on to that in a second. The workaround solutions are completely legal. They're legally binding, but they're a bit fiddly. And this is what I mean by kind of adapting and being agile and being innovative and creative and working with partners on the ground to get your content into China. It's a challenge, but it's doable. And the evidence suggests that it's actually more of an investment journey than anything else. It's very painful at the start, but it's actually an investment into your game's lifetime or your company's lifetime in China. These are the phases that some companies go through with us, or we advise on. ICP license, legal compliance, IT constructions, business operations, and some of the challenges around establishing a legal entity in China can be quite intimidating at first. So I won't go into too much detail on these slides, but actually what I wanted to do was to show you how many slides we need to present to kind of give people confidence in the process. I just wanted to pick out this one example. Of course, Tencent develops WeChat, and the importance of this cultural appreciation I mentioned earlier is crucial. it's not necessarily a requirement or advisable even to get a website localized for the Chinese market, but certainly adapting to this particular market is really important to get it right. WeChat mini programs are kind of like mini websites within WeChat, and most companies that enter the Chinese market will develop a WeChat mini program. And we have a separate team in Europe and China who are taking care of this. You can shop within the app. You can just look at websites like we would look at websites on our phone in our browser. It's really important to have this, to be present on these platforms that Chinese gamers are present on, Chinese shoppers are present on. It's part of their daily lives. And this is the operating system that kind of powers Chinese gamers' lives, Chinese families. It powers every aspect almost of daily life in China. So this would be an example that I would encourage game developers going into the China market to appreciate. Actually, you're not just investing in a game, you're investing in the ecosystem. So you have to be present on the right social media channels. You have to be present in the right websites. You have to develop WeChat mini programs. It's very much an investment process. So this is kind of one example of what I mean by navigating this obstacle course, really. And these things don't happen overnight, as anyone will tell you, that development of any software or mini program will take time, and it needs to be a process. So I just wanted to jump into those. I'll jump back to my main presentation and give you a case study. I appreciate I'm quite short on time. The case study, I can't name the client, but they're a UK developer and they wanted to stabilize this connectivity for their players in China. They don't have a Chinese entity. They're, like I gave an example earlier, their players in China remotely connect to these game servers with VPN. The problem with VPN is that you suffer network issues, latency, and it's incredibly unstable. But they had enough gamers that wanted to play their games that it was worth their while investing in a solution. So this is a great example where we worked with this UK developer on a workaround solution based on a China network IP and various security products to improve the gaming experience for their players. And because I haven't got much time, I just want to take one conclusion out of this. In games, there are various ways to monetize. You can either ask that players pay for a game, download it, enjoy it, play online, whatever, and you pay and you go. Or you can have what they're calling persistent worlds, which are generally free to download, but then you pay in-app purchases within the game. Those games have a long lifetime, and they're really popular because they give consistent, easily forecastable revenue to games companies. So ultimately, those persistent free-to-play games require a consistent quality gaming experience. If players are experiencing stutter and instability, they're not going to play and they're not going to pay. So that's why it's so important to have partners like Tencent Cloud on the ground who know the environment, who know what they're doing, who know how to enter the Chinese market. It can be the difference between your company making $1 million game and making $100 game. So those are the kind of things we help with. That would be the rough setup. I won't go into that. Just appreciate the time here, but this is perhaps a cliche, but it's kind of how I see the Chinese market from a European perspective. There's challenges at the start, but really you look at the population of China, you look at the market value, you look at the number of gamers in China. It really is, it's an investment opportunity. And you have to invest in the people, the process. There are lots and lots of administration work, of course. But what I would say to anyone in any industry, and this is outside of games, inside of games, is really partnering. Accept the process, because that won't change. There's geopolitical issues. There's all sorts of issues that even the issues in the news that we all see at the moment, can't do anything about it. We need to adapt and partner on the ground with local people and have a good network, because there's more than likely that there will be further regulatory challenges in the future. But treating this as an investment is really important, and treating China as its own market in its own right is also very important. So having that cultural appreciation. It's challenging, but it is absolutely doable. And a lot of people in games especially see that market value and they can see the process, and they have succeeded in China. Unity, the games engine, have several offices still operating in China, hugely successful because they saw it as a process over several years, not just something that we'd like to do next year. So yeah, I hope that's kind of teed up any questions that people may have, but I think that might be, that's all I have for you at the moment.
Thanks so much, Philip. That was fascinating. I definitely have a lot of questions, but I'm going to now hand over, and there are questions that are coming through the chat, but we will address them later. We're first going to do finish the presentations, but yeah, really good questions coming through, which I'm really happy about. So now we're going to hand over to Jing Shu from VeerVR. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Jing Shu.
Thanks, Maddie. Hi, everyone. I am Jing Shu. I am co-founder of VeerVR. We are a VR content platform that focuses very much on producing and distributing cinematic VR content. Let me share my screen. And today I'm going to share our learnings and experiences about distributing cinematic VR content in China. And then my presentation will include 3 parts. First, I will give a brief introduction about VeerVR, what we are doing. And then I will talk about our distribution model for cinematic VR content and how we work with international creators. Then I will share some of our insights and learnings about distributing in China. This is a introduction that can show what VeerVR is doing. So we are a VR content platform founded in 2016, and we've been in this industry for almost 6 years. Our mission is always dedicated to producing and distributing premium VR experience to mass audience. Currently, we have a very large library of cinematic VR content, including both 3DOF content and 6DOF content, both linear and interactive content. We approximately distribute over 100 titles every year. And our main distribution channel will include these 3 types of channels. The first 2 are the channels owned by ourselves. So for the online part, we have our VeerVR content platform. This is available on most of the VR headsets, like Oculus, Vive, or Pico. If you go to their app store, you can download our app and enjoy the content there. And we also operate a cinematic VR cinema chain in China. We currently have around 40 VR cinemas at shopping malls and tourist attractions, like different locations in China. The VR cinema chain is called Zero Space. So the VeerVR and Zero Space are the 2 main distribution channels that's owned by ourselves. And we also help creators to license their content to other buyers in China. And the buyers for VR content in China mainly are 2 types. One is telecom companies like China Mobile or China Telecom. They are acquiring VR content to promote 5G network, to demonstrate the use case and new possibilities of 5G network. And the other big buyer is VR headset brands like Pico. And Pico is the main players in Chinese market now. because Oculus Quest cannot enter Chinese market. So Pico is the main player, and there are other players like HTC Vive, and I heard that's like Tencent. They are going to launch their VR headsets as well, maybe later in this year or next year. But for now, Pico is the largest player in Chinese market for VR headsets. So besides the distribution, we also have an in-house production studio to produce VR original content. We invest and produce VR content like VR animation and also live action. So here are some of the projects we did before. Some of them get selected by Venice or Tribeca film festivals. But I'm not going to get into details today because today our topic is mainly focused on distribution. I'll show some pictures to just give you a brief look and feel of our platform. So this is a screenshot of VR app. We have free content as well as paid content in VR app. And this is some of the photos of our VR cinema. We currently have over like 40 sites in about 20 cities in China. They are located in different scenarios like shopping malls or tourist attractions. And sometimes we have this type of VR bus that goes outdoor or some special locations. And usually the business model is users or audience, they come into Zero Space and they will purchase a ticket for each VR content. The pricing range is usually 30 to 50 RMB, which is around 5 to 10 US dollars for a 15 to 30 minutes VR content. So the location-based entertainment market is actually pretty large in China because China has this, it's very large and have a very high population density. So the location-based entertainment is a big market here. But the challenging for VR distribution is it's actually pretty fragmented because China is so big and there are many different type of locations that VR might be able to fit in, like museum or arcade or cinema or shopping malls. So they are very different. And what Zero Space is trying to do is we want to provide a simple solution for creators. So creators, they can just work with us and we will deal with the rest of the nitty-gritty work to distribute this content to all these different type of locations. And this is, we have different type of cinema. This is a pretty standard one, which is usually located in shopping malls. It will have a 3DOF section as well as a 6DOF interactive section. And here are photos of some of the more themed VR cinema. As I mentioned, like the Chinese LBE market is pretty big and there are many different type of location that VR content can go. So we will, in these more specific locations, we will have a more themed VR cinema there, like in the aquariums or museums. And also we will try to match the content and the location. For example, in the aquariums, we will put more VR documentary about like underwater or sea lives. And besides the commercial distributing, we also work pretty closely with international film festival like Cannes XR. We've been in partnership with Cannes XR for 3 years to have this VR Future Award competition at Cannes XR. We actually just finished the call for projects for this year. And because distributing in a film festival is actually pretty important for distributing, which I will get into details later. And this year, we are going to have the online showcase of Cannes XR in May 17th. So if you are interested, please stay tuned. And here are the, so for our partnership with CanXR will including both an online exhibition and an offline exhibition in China, because China is actually a pretty big market for XR content right now, but it's a little bit closed. As I mentioned, like Quest is not entering Chinese market. So the buyers and distributor or partners, they located in China, it's very hard for them to access the online exhibition. And that's why we partner with CanXR to do an offline exhibition in China to give this XR content more exposure to potential Chinese partners and the distributors. So this is a look and feel of how a Chinese, how the CanXR offline exhibition at China looks like. So to summarize, our distribution model for cinematic VR content usually includes 3 steps. The first step is to submit the content to film festival. And film festival does play a very important role in the life cycle of content distribution, because when you get exposure in film festival, first of all, it will give you more exposure to the industry, like potential buyers, distributors, or sales agency, or potential collaborators. And secondly, after we go into the commercial distribution phase of the content, and if a project is selected by film festival, it will help, definitely helps with the marketing of the project. And also it will help you get a higher price when we try to sub-license it to like third-party platforms. So submit to film festival is usually the first step. And after we touring around the film festival, we will launch the content on VeerVR and the Zero Space, which is our VR cinema with the customized location strategy and the marketing plan. And after the first launch, maybe usually about 3 to 6 months, we will sub-license the content to third-party platforms like Pico or China Mobile or China Telecom. So this is actually pretty similar to the distribution of a film, where you launch at cinema first, and after you, because that will be the biggest part of the revenue for your project. And after that, you license it to like VOD platforms. And how we work with international creators, usually we, for Greater China, like including mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau, we will usually ask for the rights for all distribution channels, online and offline, including VeerVR's own platform, as well as licensing third-party platforms. Because if we have all of these rights, we can make a very thorough plan, to a thorough distribution plan to that include the whole life cycle of distributing a VR content from the initial launch to the sub-license after the initial launch. And for the rest of the world, VeerVR is an online platform that has international audience, but usually we only ask for a non-exclusive online distribution rights, because we don't focus on the distributing of the rest of the world. And we only do location-based distribution in China, not outside of China. So for the rest of the world, we usually only ask for a non-exclusive online distribution rights. And for the revenue model, it's usually, there are 2 types. One is flat fee, which is we pay a very high upfront fee for the creators, and the other model is the revenue share, where we share the revenue with our creators. And sometimes it can be a mix. For example, sometimes we pay a flat fee to distribute on VeerVR's own platform, and then we do revenue share with creators if we license it to third-party platforms. So it's quite flexible, and it really depends on different content. And usually the time span is between 3 to 5 years, because we currently in China, the VR market is still small, but we do think there are a lot of potential in the future. So we prefer the deal that's a longer term partnership. And just to share some of the data from our part, this is our data from last year. So so we actually distributed over 100 titles in 1 year in our VR cinema, and it generates about 20 million RMB total box office. I think it's still very small comparing to a film market, like traditional film market, but I think it's already a reasonable size and can support a very sustainable ecosystem. But as you can see here, it's actually location-based VR market is actually pretty competitive. It basically follows the Pareto rule or the 20-80 rule, where the top titles, like the 20% of the titles will take over like 80% of the market share. So to show this data, I want to highlight my point is that China is a big market and it has a lot of potential, but it's also pretty competitive, and only the very top content will get most of the market share. And so since last year, there are over 10 projects that they get over 1 million RMB box office from Zero Space VR Cinema. I think this is a pretty meaningful milestone to hit over like 1 million RMB box office for a VR industry in China. As I mentioned that it's the location-based VR market is pretty competitive, and it follows the 20-80 rule. So having a very thorough marketing and localization strategy is quite important. So first is China is very big, and the audience, their taste for different content are very diverse. So for each project, it's important to define your target audience and find the unique selling point towards them. So the first step, this is very important because this will influence all your decision making and the strategy in the distribution cycle. And the second, translation and the doubling it's a basic we need to do to distribute in Chinese market. And having Chinese dubbing is very important for VR content, because if we only have the translation and the Chinese subtitle, it's usually the user experience is not very good to watch subtitles in VR. And if we are going to select voice actors, choose celebrities will definitely help the marketing and distributing of the projects. And also work close. If we spend the budget to choose celebrities, we need to take full advantage of this. So we need to work with celebrities to prepare marketing materials like posters, trailers, and promotional videos. This is an example we did last year. This is another project. Daniel will share the case study of Gloomy Eyes. That is also a project that we have partnership with, and this is another project we help them to distribute. It's Battle Scar. So for this project it's a story about two girls. They learn and play punk, and punk music is a very, very niche music type in Chinese market. So we need to find who are the right target audience, and if we are going to choose a celebrities, who might be the right one. So for this project, we choose the Naomi Wang Ju. She has a very independent personality, and her fans are more likely to be the right target audience for this type of girl power project or niche culture project. So we work with her, and she has over 10 million fans and followers on Weibo, which is a Chinese version of Twitter. And so we work with her on the doubling, and we also ask her to help us with the posters and the promotional videos. And she also posts the marketing materials about this project on her social media. And this is very important if we collaborate with celebrities, because we are not going to just use their voice. We are also need to use their image and their social media and their influence to get more of their followers to watch the VR content. And besides that, we also need to do like PR and marketing and work with other influencers in this industry to spread the word about this project out. So the localization strategy and the marketing strategy is very important. And usually we need a marketing team of several people to support this type of project. Another thing I want to highlight is that I think the key to successful distribution is to perfectly match the content and the channel and the audience. And the different channel, they have very different audience, and their content preference is quite different. So I will just share some of our insights about these 3 different type of main distribution channel in China. So the first one is the location, the LBE, which is our zero space VR cinema. So according to our data, we find the main audience who will come to the LBE are Generation Z or Generation Y, which are aged between 18 to 30. And another big group is families with children under 7. And also the gender is pretty balanced in LBE. Our data is we have about 45 male audience versus 55 female audience. And here are some of the content type that are really popular in our VR cinema. I'm not going to go through it in details. You can take a look at the slide. For the sub-license, like I mentioned before, the buyers are mainly VR headsets and telecom companies. But the VR headset and telecom companies, their audience are very different. The VR headsets owners are mostly gamer. This is very similar to Oculus Quest. And most of them are male, maybe around like 90% of the users are male. So their preference for content are different from LBE audience. They usually look for more heavier content or more fast-paced content. And the telecom companies is very different because their audience are very general and diverse. And also they will have some elder people in their audience profile, which are not the target audience for LBE and the VR headset. So telecom companies, their content preference will include some of the slower paced content like travel, art, or documentary. And like I mentioned before, the content, if a content is selected by top film festivals, or if it's adapted from a well-known IP, they are more likely to get the attention from the audience and also get a better deal from these buyers. And another thing we need to know about Chinese buyers is that Pico and China Mobile, they are very large company. So they usually will have a supplier library for the content licensing, and you need to get into the library, kind of like the library, and to be able to make deal with them. And they usually don't work with individual creators. They prefer to work with like platform like us or distribution company like Astrea, like who can provide them a bundle deal, not individual creators. Yeah, so these are some of the insights about Chinese market. And to summarize, I think there are 3 top in-demand genres in China that is will be more likely to success than other genres, and will be success on all different channels, which are science fiction and fantasy and thriller. This is according to our user research from over 2,000 audience from different channels. And these are always on the top 3 in the list of what are the audience they most expect to watch in VR. And also another thing I want to highlight is that we actually need more VR experience that appeal to female audience. As I showed the data before, actually in the LBE, we have slightly more female audience than male audience. But inside the VR industry, if we look at the content landscape, actually we have more content that's appealing to male than female. So I think there are also huge opportunity in VR experiences that appeal to female audience. So to summarize my suggestion about distribution in China, I think the first is to have a distribution strategy before the production, not after, because if we don't have the strategy before the production, it's usually quite difficult to shape a plan. After we have the production, we might not have enough materials to support our distribution strategy. And second is local marketing strategy is very important. Localization does not only include like translation and dubbings, it also includes how you work with the celebrities and how to do the local marketing. And last but not least is Chinese market is complicated, so find a trusted local partner and also build a long-term partnership. So these are all I want to share today, and thank you very much. If you want to enter in, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me through my email or go to our website. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jingshu. That was so insightful, jam-packed with information. I'm sure there will be so many questions afterwards. I'm now going to hand over to Danielle, and then we're going to go into the discussion and questions. So Danielle, over to you.
I think she just left the Zoom meeting.
Danielle disappeared. Okay, I'm sure she'll be back soon. So, oh, there she is. Okay. Zoom. Okay. Hopefully next time we can meet in person. So
yes, good timing for that. So yeah, let me share my screen, and I'm super excited to pick off where Jingshu left off, because in fact we are very much aligned with distribution models. So it's quite interesting because I'm going to get more granular and give a specific case study. So can everyone see the screen? That's good. Okay, so yes, Jingshu mentioned Gloomy Eyes. Gloomy Eyes is a project I want to talk about today as a case study, and then a way to even further understand partnerships, localization, and the Chinese market very much from a French-European perspective, and through this one example, and then zooming out again. So yes, going to who we are at Astrea. So in fact, Astrea was founded quite recently. We are the third branch of Atlas V, which is a production studio that was founded in 2017 that has been very prolific in the VR industry, especially for narrative cinematic content. So we distribute all of their content, which is a mix of 360 and 6DUF. And so we have about 25 projects of Atlas, and then we have about 25 projects that we are distributing now, starting in 2021, that are representing other studios. So this is just a screenshot of some of our catalog. And like I said, today, the main thing I wanted to talk about is Gloomy Eyes. But first, it's important to piggyback off of what Jing Shu had said about the festival model and the type of content that we represent specifically. So we do represent content that goes to A-level film festivals. So all of the large film festivals have a VR component, and this content Atlas has been making content that has been award-winning across internationally recognized, and so we're also working with producers that are also creating this very high-level storytelling, these types of experiences. And then that has been really, as Jing Shu had said, the springboard to making a lot of connections and to being able to leverage content. So it's definitely a very important factor in our distribution model for Atlas and other content outside of Atlas. And then right now we have a wide range of content that we represent that's kind of divided into different genres. So we have documentaries, real stories, we have more artistic pieces, we have fiction that is kind of an umbrella term for storytelling, and then we have a good selection of nature documentaries, exploration, space, and then we have obviously animation with this last piece here, Madrid Noir. But Gloomy Eyes is really the case study I want to talk about today. So Gloomy Eyes is an animated 30-minute experience divided into 3 chapters. That was produced by Atlas V and 3DAR with the support of many partners. And so I'll get into that. And yes, so Gloomy Eyes, it's an HTC Vive original piece. So you can see even from very beginning of this project, we had partners in China, which really helped it have a lifespan that has been quite interesting. We had a distribution partnership with VeerVR in 2018. That was when we first connected. So I will talk about that. We've localized the piece into quite 6 languages right now, one of which is Mandarin. And then just this year we've ported to Pico, and we'll talk about what's next. So yes, Gloomy Eyes is a project that, as you can see, it had its premiere at Sundance, and then it went to South by Southwest, Venice, Annecy, and it was localized in partnership with VeerVR. And I will be sharing a quick trailer about that. But the thing about Gloomy Eyes that's interesting is it's a piece that can really apply to quite a few different genres. It's obviously animation, but it touches on more deep topics, so it works for adults as well. And really it's been in large part the openness and willingness of the co-producers to explore and to make connections, and without necessarily guarantee of results at the time, because this was made, starting to be made in, as we said, 2018, and then was in the festival scene in 2018, 2019. And so it's been a piece that we've been able to experiment with, again, because of that cooperation with so many international partners. And so let's dive into more of that. As I said, it was an HTC Vive original piece. So this is a concept art from Gloomy Eyes that they made the connection very early, and with the idea that it would be published on the Viveport platform. And so this is something that a lot of projects have done in the past, but it really helped springboard things. And then, as I said, with Veer, we were lucky to meet Veer and Jing Shu and her team, and they really were the first distributors in China to push things forward for narrative experiences. So we've had Gloomy Eyes localized in large part because of Veer. So I want to share with you now. Normally, you should have sound, but because I had to restart, let me just.
No, I think there's no audio.
So I'm going to quickly stop share and then reshare with sound, and it should be pretty quick. And
尽管在危险，太阳还是决定躲起来，不再发光。因为它受不了人类的愚蠢。如果人类愿意接受所有爱的形式，也许一切会变得不一样。
Okay, so yes, I think. And then I go to the next slide. There we go. So this is with the voice of Jam Xiao. He's the narrator in this piece. And so he as Jing Shu had said, it's really great to try to work with talent. Battle Scar is a great example because they're able to tap into her social media followers, and with Jam Xiao, a big part of it also was I know that the creators had a say. They were looking for a very specific voice, and so yes, he's been the voice of Gloomy Eyes. So I'd like to, Gloomy Eyes is an example that it really follows exactly what Jing Shu had said. And so I wanted to talk about negotiations and what types of deals, because things really have evolved a bit since Gloomy Eyes. So there's two different ways. There's to distribute in China, as Jing Shu had said. There's the offline, so that's the examples that Jing Shu gave, and then there's online telecommunication licensing and porting to new platforms. So this is just, oh, sorry, this is actually a quick screenshot about localization that I wanted to let you know. And on the creator side, on the producer side, it's very important to be super organized with files and integration and planning that in the production rather than afterwards and trying to catch up. But in terms of festivals in China, what we found is we've made really great connections by Sandbox Immersive Festival. So there's a lot internationally where we can meet people, but Sandbox is one where recently we've been able to connect, even though things have been virtual, and start to have a better understanding on the different types of manufacturers right now. So Jing Shu talked a lot about Pico, which is an excellent headset that's standalone and really comparable to the Quest headset, and someone that we did work with for Gloomy Eyes. There's also the iQIYI headset, which is more new, but someone that is a new player that is quite interested, and because they have a background connected to the Netflix of China, it's really great to talk with them, these early discussions, and see what is possible for in terms of porting technically, and then what types of deals they might be interested in. And then there's other players that are coming on, Huawei, of course. And it's important to obviously to understand these different players, talk to them, and try to form these long-lasting relationships like we've had with Veer, and trying to understand those types of deals early. So those important factors, what we found, are obviously territories. So where is distribution happening? Making sure that, for example, if we have, with Gloomy Eyes, we had an exclusivity agreement with Oculus for a certain territory. So really being quite cautious about where things are being distributed, and respecting all legal documents, but also knowing that behind the legal is that relationship and that trust. And then that goes into exclusivity as well. So where we can work with people, but how, what is okay, what are the expectations, and making sure those discussions are happening super early from contracting phase. And then revenue share, as Jing Shu had said, there's a flat fee, there's a percentage. We found that sometimes it's possible to negotiate for visibility within the headset. And yes, and then how long will we license? Because some parties we're finding, for example, Pico is more preferential to an exclusive, looking at an exclusive agreement, both in terms of territory and parties, distribution partners, and then in terms of the license duration, if, for example, the lifespan of the project seems to make sense to go in a different direction after 3 years, that can be possible if it's something that you want. So just constantly keeping things open, researching, and trying to meet new people, which kind of leads to a new partner that we are starting to work with in China. And this is really early. The Sandman Studios, they're behind the platform that just launched for South by Southwest called Vast. They are a production studio as well, and now getting into distribution. So this, like our partnership with Veer, it's been exciting because it's all based on human connection, on meeting people in person, ideally, but now online as well in a setting like this. Thank you, Maddie. And making connections and trying to find if there's ways to work together, because while Gloomy Eyes is a great case study where you can see the lifespan and it really follows everything that Jing Shu, this model that works really well, it's one project. And as she had said, what we're looking at when we can come together, and especially as distributors based in Europe, and with having more content, we have the more ability to leverage and to make bundles, to make a curated selection of content that fits some of those genres and categories that Jing Shu was talking about, that are important to the Astrea brand as well. And so it's, for us, we're finding we're quite new to the scene. We're quite new to distribution in comparison to Veer, and Sandman is even more new. So it's really exploratory at this phase. But what we're finding is there's a lot of themes that are in common, including meeting new people as much as possible, trying to follow the market closely. We are from a distance, being based in France, but we can still see what's going on, and I think we can take inspiration from someone like Philipp, who presented different ways that Wechat is interesting. I know Atlas is getting more into the gaming side of VR as well. So trying to explore avenues where partnerships make sense is very important for us. And yeah, really important to also, as an outsider, listening to people who live in China, who are working directly with the market, because if you can have a strong relationship based on trust, you can know that it's obvious that they'll know more than us who are farther away. So those are our main points that we have today. And everything with Sandman that we talked about, it's quite new. Nothing is signed, but it's interesting to see that there are new parties coming up, and I think it'll be nice to see how we can take this model that we made with Gloomy Eyes, Notes on Blindness, Battle Scar, and see how that can work with these other partners. So that's all for me. It's rather quick, but concise.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I really appreciate also you packing so much information into little time, because, you know, we want to give space for our participants as well. So thank you to all of you. I'm gonna start with Emma, because you kind of asked the first question, and I think the people here would be really interested to know more about what you do as well at Cooperative Innovation. So I'm handing over to you for your questions and your intro.
Thank you. So I have so many questions. This has been such a useful session. Thank you so much. My name is Emma Cooper. I'm Business Development Cooperative Innovations. We make immersive content that brings people together. So we have a multiplayer party game called Space Team that is a port from an original mobile game from back in the day. And we are looking at converting that into an LBU, and specifically looking at whether the Chinese market is a good place for that. I think, given what I've learned today, it is. The other thing that we're working on is kind of using playful applications in cultural settings. I think my main question is around kind of like the cultural need. So what is it that audiences want in China? And I think what I'm hearing is more content for a female audience, and more content that works in an LBU setting. Would you confirm that suspicion?
Yeah, I think that's probably a question for me. Yes, so I was just looking at your initial question, Emma, in the chat. The gameplay styles, yes, absolutely. Social multiplayer party games. The kind of the demographics, certainly around where Tencent is based in Shenzhen, is a very young crowd. People, you know, gamers are a similar demographic to the to gamers in Europe. Young people love getting together. COVID has kind of changed how people interact. So they like to be part of online communities, and they like to be part of social communities. Certainly for during COVID, you know, the university generation were having their parties like house parties, and you know, getting together in people's houses and doing local based social party games. You know, the kind of Just Dance games from 10-15 years ago have kind of evolved through like Guitar Hero, and now social based dance games that can be played with a companion app, for example. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I guess one of the things I would emphasize is that the Chinese market, although it's different in terms of the restrictions and the kind of the skeletal structure behind it, there are people just like you and I. Like, there's people, the young people want to play games. They have the same interests, the same social tendencies as gamers in the West. They're really no different. So from the demographic point of view, I don't really see there being much different, other than they have, you know, challenges imposed upon them to restrict their gameplay. Let's say they have the same interests. They like big multiplayer online battle arena games. They like playing together. They like, you know, boasting about it and sharing it on social media. So in that sense, China's really not that different from the West in terms of their interests. There may be restrictions imposed on them, but they like football games. They like party games, same as you and I. So although we treat China as a different market, the demographic that you're trying to attract is quite similar.
That's a really interesting and useful insight. Thank you. We have a prototype game that we're currently pitching. So our CEO is in San Francisco at the moment,
okay.
Washington DC. And yeah, we're looking at it's a cake decorating competition as a group. That will be
sounds fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that sounds like I'm hearing good things. This is very
exciting. I mean, obviously you've looked at stuff like Overcooked from Team 17. Those kind of fun party games, they're fantastic. And you know, those types of games are going to go. They're going to keep on growing in popularity. Probably more and more focused on mobile. Yeah, I would have complete confidence that a game like that could do well in China for sure.
Jingshu, do you mind if I ask you about this? Because I know last time we spoke, you did have some interest, I suppose, into sort of multiplayer VR games. So I was just curious to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, we find there is a huge demand for multiplayer VR games in LBE market. I would suggest the player number is like between 2 to 4, because that's usually a smaller size of group of people which they are likely to hang out in LBE. So we actually added a 6-staff interactive gaming section in our Zero Space VR Cinema, and we're actually looking for content that supports like 2 to 4 multiplayer VR games, and I think there's huge opportunity for like social VR games in Chinese market. Yeah.
So you two should talk.
Yeah. Can you send me an email? Yeah, I'm very interested in your project.
So I'm now going to hand over to Rosemary, if that's okay. Rosemary, can you tell us a bit about, you know, your company and also you? I know you had a question as well.
Yes. Yes, we have done VR. We started with VR. In fact, when we first started, that's what I was most interested in. So I come out of traditional film and television, when BAFTAs and pre-Europas, and one day I opened a little window into the immersive world and went, "Oh, that's exciting! All these fantastic tools, which you're always looking for new ways of telling stories if you like telling stories in a screen-based way." And I realised there were lots of opportunities. And so in actual fact, Madeleine, I think you've probably come across me through Creative XR, because we were on the first cohort that Digital Catapult put together for Creative XR. And there was only 3 AR people there, because we quickly realized that what we were interested in was less the VR, which is inside the headset, and more going out into the world and therefore using AR, which has got its own problems. So we were, out of the cohort of 20, there were only 3 of us who were interested in doing an AR experience, and we developed something called Secret Coast, which is an augmented reality story-based experience in which we use story to lead people along a coastal path, and characters appear out of the sand and on the sea. And so it's like a film, but split into lots of little bite-sized pieces, which people have to access along the trail. And from that point, we've developed other story trail AR experiences. So that's why my question was looking at the business model. And I'd be really interested I was really interested in the Tencent support and partnering with them, because we would clearly, if we moved into China, we would need that support. But it would be interesting to know the mobile game market, and for instance, of which Pokemon Go was one, and we use that quite often as a model. And our business model is not to charge the user initially, but to look at charging location stakeholders. So for instance, we did a project with Manchester City Football Club, which got rather derailed because of COVID, actually. It started before COVID. And what we were doing there was what they wanted us to do was create a story trail that encouraged people to walk to the stadium instead of drive. And when you walk to the stadium at the Etihad Stadium in Manchester, it goes through quite a lot of deprived areas. So the idea was that not only are you encouraging people to walk using the AR story quest, but also you're encouraging people to spend money and also look at their environments. And that's the great thing that I love about AR, actually, is it makes you look at the environment whilst you're doing it. So a lot of our projects, we did one on a train from London to Edinburgh, and the whole story drive behind that was to make people look outside the train and engage with things that are happening outside, and characters from outside came inside and sat on your desk. And so we're using story to get people to care about their environment and engage with it. So therefore, the business model is getting people like Manchester City to pay for it, because then you move people. And our shtick, when we were on the European Space Agency incubator program, and they train you to have an elevator pitch. And our elevator pitch is that we move people. We move people emotionally with really compelling stories, because we've worked with Netflix, so we know how to get you to watch those box sets through the night. And we make really compelling characters that are really lovable. So we move you emotionally, but we also want to move you physically through locations. And there's a real value to moving people physically. We can create footfall for places that need regeneration. It's very healthy to get people to move. It's a shareable family experience in the fresh air. But also there are some location stakeholders who want to move you as well, like Manchester City Football Club. And in Pokemon Go's case, like McDonald's, who, I mean, I'm sure Philip will know all about, in fact, most people know all about the Pokemon Go statistics, which are absolutely astonishing, about how they made money from moving people from place to place. So that's my question. Is that something that Tencent, is that the sort of game that Tencent would be able to help us with? Because that's a different, you've got to access those retail markets and those partners who are on the trail, which is, I mean, that's complex enough in Europe. So we've done one of those, and it was complex enough to do that, but to do it in China, I would find it even harder.
It is complex. From what I know about, so firstly, the story trail idea, the story trail AR, it just sounds fantastic to me. You know, the potential for integrating that into an educational experience sounds great. You know, post-COVID, getting people out walking, you know, getting out of the house, especially in urban areas, fantastic. The Pokemon Go question is really interesting, because Niantic, who developed Pokemon Go for mobile, they still haven't cracked it. So I'm not sure I have an answer that's going to make you smile, because Niantic, a huge developer, actually based on the West Coast, and they partnered by way of investment with NetEase, which is their partner on the ground in China, I believe. The main blocker there, I believe, is that Pokemon Go is based on the Google Maps system, and Google Maps isn't used in China. I think they're trying to navigate the problem by using OpenStreetMap as their basis for geolocation. But I just remember in about 2017, 2018, Niantic said they were working on it, and I haven't heard anything since.
Yes, yeah.
So I would say that it's challenging.
Yes.
It's not impossible. If you were you could even partner with Niantic and say, look, you know, we reach out to those guys and say, how are you getting on with this project?
Yeah.
Once that sort of technical hurdle is done, then you would have to, then certainly Tencent would be a great partner, because WeChat Pay would be present in, I would say, 99% of the locations for any kind of story trail AR experience. So that would be a great partner for the kind of step 3, let's say.
So what you're saying is, if we crack the mapping issue, which we have the same problem in certain areas where we just, there are certain rural areas. We wanted to do a fantastic trail for the Via Francigena, which is from Canterbury to Rome, because it's rural. Sometimes the Google Maps doesn't work there. So we come up with different solutions for mapping. And we've got one in Liverpool where we've used a different, I can't remember why the tech team used a different mapping system. Yeah. So we do look at different.
Yeah, I would be hesitantly optimistic. However, when 5G rolls out, this is going to change the environment slightly. I don't know enough about that side of things to comment further, but I know that, for example, Niantic are very excited about 5G for Pokemon Go and Harry Potter Wizards Unite, which is also an AR-based game. In fact, the MWC before COVID, I think they demoed multiplayer for Harry Potter Wizards Unite in AR on the show floor, and it was very impressive. We go look it up on YouTube.
Wow. We've got another project with multiplayer, so I didn't know that I thought Harry Potter was struggling a bit, actually, so I'd taken my eye off that ball, but I will look at that. That sounds really interesting.
I think last week Warner Brothers announced a console version of Harry Potter, so I think the momentum will
come back
reignite.
I think you're absolutely right about 5G. And I've also been holding out for smart glasses, but I went to a conference last week and realised they're way, way, way beyond, they've got a long way to go before they'll ever be able to have the sort of quality that of visuals that we use.
I would also, just thinking out loud a little, also think about using some Bluetooth geofencing location-based technology as well.
Well, we also do a lot of image triggers as well. So the one in so we sometimes do a sort of mix so that we have because people do like it. The clients do like it when you say it's GPS triggered, because they like the idea that it's that you walk across geofences. But actually, image triggers are really great because they also it's a visual thing to say, oh, there's something happening here, and people gather around the image, and then they go and they place their augmented reality experience elsewhere. So yeah, we can do image triggers, but even then, that does involve an awful lot of on-the-ground partners.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
If you're sticking stuff up, are you going to work with local people? So that's you definitely need help with.
Very challenging. Unfortunately, that was one of my conclusions, but is the need to partner on the ground. Two other people that may be interesting partners for you. I don't know if you've thought of What 3 Words. I don't know what their sort of global reach is. They could be interested because I think they are also trying to be regionally agnostic, let's say. I would also I don't know if you have a presence at these types of events, but make yourself known at events like Pocket Gamer. There are lots and lots of people looking for partners like yourself at these events. You know, there's obviously the people that make games that are looking for publishers and investment and things, but to be in those circles and those conversations, I think could be fruitful for you.
That'd be really great. Thank you very much. Well, I'll solve all those problems and then maybe manage to do that.
And then let me know. Yeah.
Let us know too, please, Rosemary. I think we'd love to know, please. So I think we have 2 minutes left. So we have time for one more question. And I hope that you guys manage to connect as well. I mean, we'll send the slides, the recording afterwards, so you will be able to connect with each other, because I think there are many more questions. But does anyone have a final burning question? So I'm gonna pick up one from the chat just because I don't want to. So there was a question from Leo. Leo, did you want to ask this question?
Yeah, Philip, sorry, it was about data and streaming at 1 megabit per second. I'm aware we've got 2 minutes left, and this is a really technical question. Do you think you could give any insight in less than 90 seconds about what we should consider for high fidelity data?
No pressure.
You're challenging me. You're challenging me. So the answer is yes. Tencent has a solution called the Game Acceleration Platform, which essentially creates a virtual tunnel to cradle high fidelity streaming. So we have, I guess it would fall into the category of our workaround solutions. We can absolutely, enable consumption for high fidelity. It's something that we do to improve the end user experience for a number of games anyway. So absolutely happy to connect with you and go into more detail, but technically possible, yes. Easy, no. Doable, yes, as well. So
positive answer.